Okay, so welcome again to this session where this is the JavaScript Fundamentals session. For the rest of the week, we're going to do what I'm calling Common Core. And these are elements of development that apply to all the three different tracks. So we're going to learn JavaScript to an extent. We're going to learn source control. We're going to learn how to use Git. We're going to learn a little bit of Node as well, but just enough to get started. And then next week, when we split into the specialized tracks, then each track will learn more specific uses of JavaScript for their track. So they're going to use specific frameworks, and they're going to learn specific techniques that are applicable to their tracks. Okay? So we're going to jump right in. I'm going to share my screen, and then we will start the course today. Okay. Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah, I can see it.
Yes.
Okay, great. So we're going to start with setting up our project. My hope is that everyone has Visual Studio Code downloaded and installed, right? And so that's where we're going to do all our programming for this course. Okay, we're going to write out our code in Visual Studio Code, and we're actually going to test that it works in Visual Studio Code. So let's go into the project setup. Okay, everyone's going to need to create a new folder, which is where all the programs that you write will live. Right, so the very first step is to create a new folder, and then we will open the folder in Visual Studio Code. There are different ways for starting a project in Visual Studio Code, depending on whether you're on Windows or you're on a Mac or you're on Linux. Personally, I use Linux, but the way I do it will be the same way Mac users will do it. And then for Windows users, we'll figure it out pretty quickly. Okay, so first thing you need to do is to create a folder wherever you want on your computer. So it would typically be opening files, right? For our Windows people, you open the File Explorer and you can create a folder wherever you want it. For me, I use a terminal. I'm going to put my terminal over here. And that's how I create a folder on my computer, and that works as well for Mac users. I'm going to give us a couple of minutes to create a folder and be ready for that.
So we just talk about bug standard folder in your computer. That's it, right?
Sorry?
We just talk about ordinary folder.
Yes, just an ordinary folder, an ordinary directory. Okay. So for Mac users, if you're on a Mac, you have a pretty nice terminal. I would recommend using it. And getting to your terminal is easy. Press the Command key, spacebar, and type terminal. When you do that, you will find the terminal and you open it. You will get something similar to what I have on my screen. For Windows users, you would actually use your File Explorer, right? So which is here for me. And you might want to, you create a folder wherever you want it. So
what's the advantage of using the terminal instead of a regular file explorer?
well, as a developer, a terminal is kind of a terminal is your best friend. You have a lot more control and a lot more commands available at the terminal, right?
And what
And
can I see that command you use to make your folder in the terminal again?
yes, so
Make directory training. Got
yes,
it.
mkdir, and you can just say mkdir training. So that's for people on Macs. For people on Windows, you can just right click and create new folder the way you typically do it on Windows.
I should rename it training or something.
Yes. Do you recommend that we rename it? Do you recommend that we rename it exactly the same thing?
You can name it whatever you want for now. Eventually, as we go along, we're going to start working on a project and we will have it be the same name. But that's going to be in a different class. Today, just create a folder for today's topics, and that's enough. Okay. Now, when you're in the folder, and so on Mac, you go cd training to change directory into that folder. And when you're there, you just type code space period. And when you do that, it will start up Visual Studio Code in that folder.
That's for Mac people, isn't it? What about Windows?
Yes, for Mac, yes. Let's get the Mac people done, and then we'll try Windows.
So what was that? What was that? Was it code? What was it again? Code
Space.
Yeah.
Let me show you my terminal here. So it's code space
Gotcha.
and just a dot.
And
that just says, hey, Visual Studio, start a new project here.
right. It's going to be command not found.
Okay. Do you have Visual Studio Code installed?
Yes, Visual Studio Code. Yeah, I already had it open anyway. Should I just shut it down?
Okay. Well, shut down and try that, and it's lowercase.
Okay.
Yeah, it's lowercase code.
Quick one. I've already created a folder, and I'm using already set open folder on Visual Studio
Yes.
Code.
So on Windows, yes, right click on the folder you created, and you should have an option to open in Visual Studio Code.
Yeah, that's not working for me.
Okay.
If you don't mind, can you back up a bit? Try to create a folder on a Mac. Trying to understand where you started from exactly.
So if you open up a terminal, do you have a terminal open?
Yes.
Yes, just type right where you are. It's probably open in your home directory. Just type mkdir space training. That's make a directory training.
Okay, thank you.
And then when you have done that, then change into that directory. So you do cd training, and your prompt will look something like this. It will now have training at the end. And when you're there, you should be able to just say code done. Or,
thank you.
Yes. Did that work?
Yes.
Okay. And for Windows people, I believe you should be able to right click and you have an option to open the Visual Studio Code. So if we all have Visual Studio Code open.
Hold on, bear with me. On Windows, it doesn't show up open with Visual Studio Code. You've only got the Git here and Git bash here on the options.
When you right click, so you're in File Explorer.
Yeah, I'm on the training folder. I've changed it to training folder rather. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, back out of the training folder, so you're one level above.
Yeah, on the home, on the base folder. Yeah.
Yes, and then right click on the training folder.
Yes. All I can get is open.
Please, what is the training folder?
It's a new folder you just created.
So the folder, I just created a folder and right click and there's no open with
Visual Studios at all.
Okay.
No, so it has view, sort by, group by, refresh, customize this folder, paste, paste shortcut.
Okay.
Can somebody share their screen?
Okay,
Can
so let's do this.
share your screen and then you can work.
Yes. Can you hold on? Hold on. Everybody, please hold on. Has anybody on a Windows computer gotten it working?
Yes.
Okay.
Mine has worked.
Okay. Do you mind sharing your screen?
Not mine.
Okay.
Okay, sure.
Yes. So I need someone who's gotten it working in Windows. I don't have Windows here, unfortunately. I use Linux on my computer. So
I'll
I'm going to
quickly
stop sharing, and someone with Windows who's going to volunteer to share. There's a share button that will show up at the bottom. So I'll stop sharing so you can share.
Okay.
All right, I'm just going to quickly add that the option to be able to open files with code in that menu is something that you choose while you're downloading. So it's very possible some people were able to they're able to install Visual Studio Code without that option to be able to launch files with it.
Okay. All right. So let's jump in. Let's have someone share. We'll sort it out now. That's a good. I'm trying to keep track of time.
So another question: can I just open the Visual Studio for software anyway? Application.
If you do, it's not going to start up in the folder that you want. So Visual Studio is a little quirky with how it deals with projects. Okay.
If someone,
So who's sharing, please?
yeah, I'm not sure if anybody has shared, but I can.
Yes, please. Whoever wants to share, just click share. It's first thing.
Okay.
That's Windows user, right?
Yes. So for Windows user, what I did, I'm not sure if everybody can see my screen.
I can.
I can see it.
Yes. So I just started from here, and I typed CMD.
Yeah, command.
Right.
Command.
That's to open the terminal.
Yeah, to open the terminal. And then I followed your instructions. Let's see. Over here, I made the directory. So I just typed mkdir space training. And then after I typed that, I went into change or cd space training. And then the next step I did was to type code dot, but then I didn't put the space between the code and dot. So code dot didn't work, but then the code space dot worked, and then it brought up this screen.
Okay, so let's all do it the same way then. Is open up a terminal, right?
Excuse me, you're
Yes.
overdue.
Thank you so much for sharing that. So let's do it this way. Everyone on Windows, go to your Windows menu, to your start menu, and type CMD. Okay, you type CMD, you get the command prompt. And then when you open up the command prompt, you type mkdir, like shortcut for make directory, space training. All right, and you press enter. That's going to make a training directory. Then you press cd space training. That's change directory. So cd space training. And then when you're in there, you type code space dot.
Was that code?
Code space period. Yeah.
So every time we open Visual Studio now, it will open with that folder, yeah?
Yes. After this, it will open with that folder because you essentially set up that to be your project folder.
Sorry, Yinka.
Yes.
Okay. That's worked for me. Thanks.
Okay, awesome. So this is just initial setup. Once you set this up, code will see that as your project folder. And when you come back, you don't have to go through all of this again.
Right, just to butt in, for the Mac users, it's still not working.
Okay.
And I'm sorry to jump in here, but I didn't hear a word of what anyone said for, I don't know, maybe the last 3-4 minutes.
Okay. Are you on a Windows or a Mac?
I'm a Windows.
Okay. So if you go to your start menu, you type CMD.
CMB.
CMD, like command. Yes, like command.
Okay, CMD.
And then that, and then click on that to open the command prompt.
Okay.
And then you type make directory. That's mkdir space training.
Small case.
Yes, all lowercase.
It doesn't matter.
Yes, but try to keep. Hold on. For everyone, try to stay all lowercase because JavaScript is case sensitive.
Okay.
So unless otherwise stated, everything I say will be lowercase. So mkdir space training. And then you press enter, and then you type cd, that's change directory, space training. You press enter. And then when you're there, you type code space period. And that will launch Visual Studio Code in your project.
What did you say to type? CD?
Space training.
Okay.
Right. And that's to change directory into the new directory you just created.
Quick question. If we're going to access this again, are we supposed to like memorize the whole?
No, you don't have to do this again. Once you open, from now on, you can just go to your start menu and open up Visual Studio Code. It will come to the last project you were on. And there's access to previous, you see there's access to recent here, open recent, and you can access recent projects or files from here.
So,
okay. All right. So,
okay, I'll just go ahead and stop sharing, and so that way you can share.
Yes. Now, do we have any Mac users?
Yes.
Do we have any Mac users that have gotten it working?
I think that's a no.
Okay, so we have no Mac users gotten it working. Do we have a Mac user to volunteer sharing their screen?
I can share if you want me to.
Okay, please go for it. And don't worry, we're still on schedule. I'm checking the time.
Okay. So. I'm gonna share. Right. I hope you can see this.
Yes, I can see your screen.
Yep.
All right, so if you close down code.
So I'll just shut down that. Let me just shut that down entirely. Right, okay.
Okay.
And that's my time.
Yeah.
What comes after CD training?
That's it, you press enter.
I can't even spell training properly. I just noticed that.
So Yinka, sorry, while you're waiting for Mark to set up, when on my own screen, after I put in CD training, it says that almost like saying that training file already exists. That's what it's showing me. Subdirectory or file training already exists. After I put in make direct, like mkdir space training.
Yes, then just to CD space training.
So when I put CD space training, it doesn't even do anything.
It should. The prompt should change to let you know you are in training. Okay. You should see training on your screen at the prompt.
So okay, what I see is users, my name, and then it says training. So
yes, so you are in training there. So just type code space dot.
Code space dot.
Yes. So if you see training at the prompt, that means you are in training. In the training folder you just created. Yes.
Code space dot.
So then just put code space dot, like code space without any code space dot.
Code space period. All right. So when you do that on Mac, what do you get?
So when I do it, it just says not common, not found.
Okay, and you have Visual Studio Code, and everybody else on Mac has the same issue.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, so let's try a different way on Mac. Let's see, open Visual Studio Code.
Okay.
And then in the menu, you go to the top left to the file menu. Actually, no, go to open folder.
Yep.
Yeah, right there. And then see if you can find that training folder you created.
My training, yeah. It's in my is it gone now?
Mr. Inga, this is Ganiat. I'm sorry for taking you back. I logged in late. I feel lost. So I'm already on the Visual Studio Code, and I clicked on something, and I think the screen went blank. So how do I go back?
What do you mean by blank?
Okay, I have. I'm still on the screen, on the Visual Studio Code screen, but I'm only on the screen. Just said welcome, untitled. The home screen went off. I think I clicked on file or something.
You're fine if you're in Visual Studio Code. You're good.
So what's the first thing I'm supposed to text? I mean, I'm supposed to type.
You're good where you are. We'll all move on together after that.
But I've not done the MKDR. I've not done anything.
Yeah. Just hold on. Let's resolve this for
right.
now.
So how do I go up? Actually, I'm trying to find my training folder. I can show you where it's here.
Yeah, in terminal. You know where it is in terminal, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So on
there. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Try Finder space duck there in your terminal.
In my terminal, yeah?
Yeah. Try Finder space duck. No, that doesn't work. All right. Type PWD. PWD is present working directory.
Yeah.
Right. Press enter.
Yep.
Okay. So it tells you it's in your users. So.
Oh yeah. So sorry.
It's in your home.
I know where it is exactly. I just can't seem to navigate backwards to it.
Right. Okay. So you have to go up to your home directory.
Which is what I'm trying to do. Sorry. Which is what this dialogue's not allowing me to do that.
Right.
So let me just do something here actually.
Okay.
Let me just change this. Go compute home. Yep. So I'll just put that down. If I can just drag that.
You see training right there. I see training right there in your home screen. Right there, it's at the bottom.
Yeah. But okay. I can see it here, but I can't see it in that dialog box when I'm in Visual Studio. Is what I'm saying. Here.
Oh, okay. Well, so here's what you can do. Try dragging it from there to Visual Studio. So cancel here.
Ah. Okay. Yep.
Cancel here.
Got you.
And try dragging it from Finder to Visual Studio.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Yeah, I'm just dropping.
Yep.
There you go. All right.
Okay.
So you're in that folder now. All right. So we'll get started here. Only have 2 minutes left of this particular segment. So what we'll all do, and for now, it doesn't matter. I wanted you to be able to set up the project, but we'll deal with this again slightly later. All right. For now, let's all just create a new file. Let me share my screen, sorry. And so we're going to proceed. And please, as like I said yesterday, please let's all be here by 6. We'll start at 6 on the dot. And that way you're not going to miss out, because it's going to be hard to keep up if you miss anything. All right, so right here now, we're going to go to File, and you're going to create a new file. And then let's change that file name so you can, we're going to say save as, and just call this hello.js.
Excuse me.
Yes.
I might have found a simple way to open that folder in VF. So
okay.
I Googled it, and the instructions I found online was to go to that folder, open that folder, and in the URL, type CMD. It will take you to command prompt.
Okay.
And in command prompt, you already be in the training directory. Just type code space period, and it opens that folder in VS Code.
Great. All right, so we'll keep track of that for next time we have to do that. All right. All right, so now create a new file, save that file as hello.js. Okay, like I had here. And one last thing I want you to do.
I'm sorry, save it where? You go up to File to the top left and click Save, or
Save as.
Or Save As?
Yes, and then give it the file name hello.js. And it should save it in your project folder, in your training folder, because Visual Studio Code is working in the context of
I'm using a Windows, and once I click Save, it's asking me for a location. So can I just put it on like a
just change
document?
the file name. No, just save it where you are. Because if you follow the steps, Visual Studio Code should be working in the folder.
Okay, so I just click the Save As, and that whole deal popped up. So I just put hello.js as the name of the file and save in JavaScript and save?
Yes. Hello.js and save. Okay?
Okay, thanks.
Now, the last thing I want everyone to do is to come to View, right? And you see here, I have a terminal open. Let me close it so it's more like yours. Your screen is probably like this, right? When you come to View here, click Terminal. And that gives you this. We won't use this right this second, but this is important. So if you have this open.
Sorry, say that again, do that again.
So you come to View.
Yeah.
And then click Terminal.
Okay, cool.
View Terminal. And that gives you a terminal inside Visual Studio Code.
In the second window below, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry, the second window below, yours has a writing in it, mine doesn't. Is that normal?
It's fine. I'm on Linux, so what we'll show here will be different for each person.
Okay, thanks.
But it should be a terminal already in the folder where the file you created is. Okay? All right. So now we'll proceed. And assuming we're all set up, let's start learning JavaScript. Okay?
So, sorry, question. What we just created, what we've just created? Is that the foundation for us to start creating JavaScript?
Yes, you've created a project environment. That's it. And you've
which is hello, right?
You haven't written any code.
I know, but the environment is called what?
So the project that you created was called training.
Okay.
Right. The script, the file you created right now is hello.js. Don't worry about those details for now. They'll make a lot more sense as we proceed. Okay? We're going to come back to that file. I wanted you to have it ready. So when we come back and start writing code, you won't have to struggle to figure out how to get your code written and running. Okay?
Okay.
So once you set that up, we're good. And we're
Another
ready
question.
to move.
Sorry. Another question. And independently, if I want to practice, can I rename that training to can I create another folder,
Yes,
but not called training? Let's say training 2 or something.
Yes. Yes,
okay.
You can. You can create as many folders as you need for as many projects as you want to work on. And you can name it whatever you want. Okay? You can name it whatever you want. All right, so moving on. So like I said yesterday, for those who are here, JavaScript is the language of the web. JavaScript is not Java, and it is not related to Java in any way. They just happen to have similar names. JavaScript is what's called a scripting language, right? And it is different from Java in that the code is interpreted. Java is compiled, right? So don't mix them up. It's not a smaller version of Java. It's not a subset of Java.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Sorry. Could you guys just mute your mics, please?
Yeah, I'm going to mute
you.
everyone. Okay. So JavaScript is not a subset of Java. It has nothing to do with Java. They just happen to be named similarly. Now, originally, JavaScript was designed for interactivity, for performing actions on web pages. But over time, it has evolved to be a very powerful, full-fledged programming language. Back-end, front-end development, and like I mentioned yesterday, you can develop games, you can develop VR, you can develop web applications, mobile apps. Even Visual Studio Code itself that you're using was developed in JavaScript. Okay, there are tools that you can use to convert that JavaScript into applications on different platforms. One of the biggest benefits and beauty of JavaScript is that it's cross-platform. And the reason I personally like developing in JavaScript is it's very, very fast, both your pace of development, but also, you know, the applications you build in it are pretty fast and robust. With Java, you constantly have to compile your application before you can even test it. As you're going to see in this class, with JavaScript, you don't need to compile. You write the code, you save, and you can run it immediately. All right? So that is JavaScript. Now, what's a programming language? Some people probably have myths about it that it's some complex, you know, weird-looking writing code. But in reality, JavaScript is based off of English. It has a much smaller vocabulary than the English language. So rather than learning tens of thousands of words and combinations, they're just a handful, maybe less than 100 keywords, right? But similar to English and any other language, it has what we call its syntax. And syntax is the way you put together words to make meaning, right? So for example, in English, if I want to say good morning, right? The correct syntax for saying that is good morning or good afternoon. If I come and say morning good, right? I screwed up the syntax and they're going to look at me weird and be like, what's this dude saying? But if I say good morning, you know exactly what I'm saying, right? Same thing with JavaScript. There's a syntax for each keyword or command and what follows it and how it needs to be written for a computer to understand it. Programs are simply instructions to a computer in a language that a particular platform, a particular computer understands. So the language we're going to be learning is JavaScript, and we'll literally just be learning how to tell a computer to do things. Okay? 1 second, let me make it so that you can unmute yourself if you need to ask questions. So we're going to start off with statements, right? What's a statement? A statement is a line of JavaScript code, right? A program is just a series of statements executed one after the other in sequence. And a program is like a recipe, right? Or a step-by-step instruction manual for a computer. So when you have a program is multiple statements. Each statement is one line. And the computer executes a program from the top to the bottom, very specifically from the top to the bottom. Similar to if you wanted to give instructions on, on when you go into a bank, you say open the door, walk into the bank, walk to the teller, write a check, give it to the teller. You have to perform those things in sequence. If you don't walk through the door, you can't present a check to the teller, right? So if you try to present a check to the teller while you're outside the bank, not going to happen. So it has to be, those instructions have to be executed in a specific sequence, and that's how computer programs work. They're line by line by line by line by line. When we go back to Visual Studio Code, you will notice that there are line numbers on the left. As you write more lines, there'll be more line numbers because those are very, very important, and you'll see why as we go along. But that's it. A statement is a line of JavaScript code, right? Now, the semicolon is very, very important. The semicolon marks the end of a JavaScript statement, right? Many browsers are forgiving, and they will give you a pass if you don't put a semicolon at the end of a JavaScript statement. But in certain modes, that will create errors. JavaScript allows your statement to span multiple lines. So it's important for you to, at the end of every line, put a semicolon. You write a new line, you put a semicolon there, right? Now, developing best practice requires you to have a semicolon at the end of every line. On this program and in the projects we work on, we're going to use what are called linters. Linters check your code to make sure you're obeying all the rules, the coding standards and the best practices. Linters will check that. So a linter will throw errors if you forget to put semicolon at the end of any line, and it will tell you what line it is. So we're going to use linters, but it's important to remember that when you write a statement in JavaScript, terminate that line with a semicolon. All right? Keywords. Keywords are words that are reserved in JavaScript. They are reserved because they have specific meaning and perform specific functions, right? In English, if I say come, that means something. You know what come means. If I say go, you know what go means. Now, what happens if I name my child come, right? There's some parents that aren't very imaginative or creative, or that are a little too imaginative and creative and name their child come. So you end up having to say come, come, right? Or go, go, or northwest. Okay, just messing around with that, but you cannot use keywords outside of their purpose. I'll explain that more as we go along, but there are a bunch of keywords. They're not that many, right? They're not that many, but they're clear rules on what they do. Every keyword has a specific purpose, and every keyword has a syntax to it. Remember, a syntax is how we put, words together to make sense, to have it make sense. So keywords each have their own syntax. They have purposes that they do. So some examples of keywords that you're going to see: if, else, for, let, break, switch, const is function, class. There are many keywords. We're going to learn as many of them as we need, but I'm also going to have you learn them in such a way that you can imagine what other keywords are and you can remember them easily. So you don't have to write them down. There's also stacks of references all over the web for the keywords. You can find a complete list of the keywords if you Google it, right? So you don't have to struggle to memorize them, just the same way you didn't have to struggle to memorize English words. You will learn them as you go, okay? And in using them, you'll remember them. All right. Now, one important thing, and here we're going to write our very first statement, right, in our file, console log. And I'm introducing this here so that you can actually write a statement. The console log is a JavaScript command that's typically available in Node, but also in browsers. I don't know if you guys remember from yesterday's class where we looked at the console in the browser. This console log actually is a command for that console. And it says log this to the console, essentially output this to the console. It is also a command for your terminal console in Node.js, okay? So we're gonna go to Visual Studio Code and we're gonna type this out. Console.log, open parentheses, and then in quotes, just type hello world, close parentheses, and semicolon. Remember the semicolon. So let's all try that.
Excuse me, is that supposed to be on the I have hello.js, so do I click enter to go to a new line or just write it behind the hello.js?
So you should be on line 1, like right here. So if you see my screen, I'm on line 1. So I'm going to type console.log hello world, like that.
And is it a single or double like quotation mark that you put there?
So you will notice I use a single quote. We'll talk about that later, but just use a single quote like I did. And I'll explain the reason why we use single quotes rather than double quotes.
Excuse me?
Yes.
Sorry to cut you. Do we do the same thing on Windows?
Yes. You're in Visual Studio Code. We all do exactly the same thing from this point going forward. Right. So as long as you're in your hello world file, and then you can save it. It's good to learn shortcuts to save. So just Control S or Command S. If you're on a Mac, Command S. If you're on Windows or Linux, Control S. And when you save it, now here in the terminal, I can type node hello. Okay.
Can I just ask you a question? So
yes.
Node hello, is that me telling the hello code to run?
Yes.
Okay.
So typing node hello is you actually executing that program. Okay. Node, remember you had to install Node.js? This is Node.js. And they're asking Node.js to execute.
Okay, excuse me, please, how do you get to this line? I'm on window and I can't get to it.
Which line?
The one you type, the console.log.
So that is when you create a new file and you save it as hello.js.
Can I share my screen, please? Do you have time for that?
So file, new file. So you go to file, new file, and you create a file, and then you save it. When you save it, you name it as hello.js, so that you know the name. And you should be in this view. Okay, it's like creating a document in Word, or you always have to start with a new file. Programs are files, right? And then they execute, one after the other, or use each other.
Sorry, Yinka, I have a little issue. Once I went to the terminal, it shows a problem. It says, hello is not defined.
Did you type node space hello?
Yes, I did. And so when I type node, my node comes out yellow. And the hello is in white. And
okay, I'm going to stop sharing.
Excuse me, Dad. Can you please explain it one more time?
Okay, what part do you want?
How to save the file?
Okay, so you come to File, right? And you create a new file, okay? Once you create a new file, you get this where you can type out the command. To save it, you can come to File and go to Save, or just press Control and S. It's good to get used to Control S for saving. That's going to make it quick. All right. Who was asking the question about the node in yellow?
I am also asking that question.
Okay. Who's willing to share?
I can share.
This is Windows. That's for Windows. That's why it's coming in yellow.
Okay, so I'll stop sharing and then you please share. Okay. So, okay, you have your console log. And you have that saved. Did you save the file? Your hello.js, is it saved?
I did save a hello.js file, then I opened another file, I created a new folder, and still none of it works.
Right, okay, so just for this one, can you go File, Save? And let's just confirm that.
Huh?
File, Save.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so it's saved now. Now type node hello.
In the terminal portion.
Yes, yes, and you're doing it right. Node space hello. There you go. So you hadn't saved the file, and the reason I knew you hadn't saved it was because you see where the X is, it was a circle. Beside the name node.js on the file name up there, it was a circle rather than an X. So always make sure you save the file, and note Visual Studio Code lets you know you haven't saved it because it wouldn't be an X, it would be a circle. Okay?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
So if you move your mouse up, let me share my screen. I'm going to go back to my screen. All right.
But when I do the same node hello.
Okay, so you see my screen right here? You see here, the file name here?
Uh-huh.
And then you see that X there.
Uh-huh.
Watch what happens if I change this. You see what's happened to the X? It's changed
If you
to a
change
circle.
what?
You see that I just added new lines. So I modified the file. Once I modified the file, see the X has changed to a circle.
Okay.
That lets me know that the file has changed.
Okay, so I need to push enter. Okay, so I've created a new line and my X is a dot there.
So what's important here is that whenever you make a change, you save the file. And you save the file quickly, Control S on Windows, Command S on Macs. So you see right here, if I press Control S, right? That circle's gone. Which means if I then execute the program, whatever the current state of the file is, will run. So you have to make sure your file is saved before you try testing. Okay?
Okay, so the file is saved. There's the X there. Now, if I go to the terminal below, I just have so many error messages, syntax error, blase, blase.
Yeah, so make sure your console log is exactly like this. No space, console.log, no space between the console and the log. Console.log and there.
All
right.
Okay.
Okay. We'll come back to the terminal. We'll get a chance to fix it. But let's move on to the next thing. Right. We're going to constantly come back to Visual Studio Code. What's the error you're getting?
It's a lot of
can you read it out? It should be in English. So just
Okay, so I've tried it multiple times. I'll read the last one. Last one says syntax error, invalid or unexpected token,
right.
9EM at wrap safe, internal modules, CJS loader. Next line says at module.compile.
Okay, so there might be a bug with your Visual Studio Code. We'll have to deal with that later.
Okay.
Okay, but the error, like you see when you read it, it's, I'm hearing it and I know what it's saying, right? And those error messages are going to be very useful as we go along. Okay, so going back.
What about if you get an error that says hello not defined?
Sorry, I lost you. You said it says hello not found.
Hello not defined.
If it says hello not defined, that sounds like you typed hello in here. It has to be in quotes like that. You see there's a single quote. So if it's not in quotes, you will get an error. It has to be exactly like this. Okay?
Yeah, mine is exactly like that. But at the bottom panel, I still got this arrow red stuff there. The term hello is not recognized as the name of the CMD alert.
Right. Did you type node space hello? It has to be node
space
hello.
Okay.
Not just hello. It has to be node space hello. Okay? So we have
Mine just worked.
Yeah, so we have to follow the instructions. So the one thing about programming is it's not forgiving for the most part, right? If you make the slightest error in your code, it's going to break and it's going to give you errors, but the error will tell you what's wrong, right? As we go along, you're going to learn to recognize the errors and know exactly what to do to fix it. It's impossible to program without getting errors as you program, but part of the skill is you see the error, you're like, oh yeah, I missed this character here, or I missed this word here, and you fix it.
Excuse me, please.
Mm-hmm.
I got a reference error. It says hello not defined at object anonymous. What could that mean?
That means your hello is not in quotes. Your hello world must be inside the quotes, like this, right? So that's why I said it must be exact. You see that? I have a single quote here, a single quote here. So it must be in quotes. In a few minutes, you will understand why that is. Let's proceed. You're going to be able to solve this yourself in a few minutes. Okay? I promise. Okay. So we'll talk about variables, right? Variables, and these are just fundamental concepts. We're going to put it all together, right? A variable is a way to store data. When you write programs, you don't necessarily have the data that the program will work on, right? Or you have data that you want to use in many different places and that may change. It is variable. So a variable is a way for you to store data to use in your program. If you think, for example, if I give you a form to fill out, I would ask you to put in your first name, your last name, your age, right? If I wanted to capture that data, I would capture first name, John, last name, Doe, age, 45, right? And then if somewhere else I wanted to refer to first name, let's say I want to write a sentence, greeting John, I would say hello, and I'll say first name. I'll ask you to use the value of first name. And that would print out hello, John. You're going to see that work in a few minutes, okay? Same thing. So that's what a variable is. It's very much like in algebra, right? It's very much like in algebra. We probably all have done something like x equals 5, y equals 6, z equals x times y, right? We've done that.
Oh, you don't.
Mhm.
like stuff like x equals 2 or like 5.
Right.
Yeah. And having equals 1 plus 4.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's how variables work. Okay, they allow you to store data for use in future statements. Okay, it also makes it such that you don't have to constantly use the same number or the same value if it's going to change. Okay, now we're going to look at, sorry, here, identifiers. An identifier is the way that you name your variable. It's essentially an ID, an identifier for your variable. So if I had a variable called first name, the identifier is first name. The rules around identifiers are typically words, right? They can't start with a number. There are best practices around it as well. But one essential best practice is that an identifier should be self-explanatory. Now, the programming language does not care what identifier you give it. Your identifier can be 1 character long, it can be 100 characters long, right? But best practices require that your identifiers make sense because they learn from what we call self-documenting code, which means code that someone else can read and they don't have to scratch their heads or try to imagine what it is you're trying to do. For example, if I were going to have a variable to capture first names, I would name that variable first name. And anybody reading that code and see that there would know that, oh, the data in there is first name. If I had a variable age, I would call it age. And anybody reading it will understand that the data in that variable is the age, right? And so on. Okay? So identifiers can start with an alphabet, a $, or underscore. You can't have special characters in identifiers. So you can have a plus or exclamation point or, asterisk in identifiers. And the reason is because they have other purposes and they mean a different thing to the program, to the operating system or the platform, right? So identifiers cannot contain special characters, and an identifier cannot be a keyword. Remember we talked about keywords earlier? You can have an identifier called if, because when the programming language, when the system sees it, when the computer sees it, it thinks you're asking it to do something rather than storing a value. Okay, so these are the rules around identifiers. They become more familiar as we go along. Okay, and we're going to use all of these today, so it's going to make more sense. Assignment. The assignment operator is this equal to sign, and that is how you assign a value to a variable, right? You have a variable first name. You have a value John. How do you make first name hold the value John? You use the assignment operator. So you would have first name equals John. And that's it, okay? We're going to see that in action as well. These are all, fundamental basic concepts. The value is always on the right hand and the identifier is always on the left hand. So you always have first name equals John, not John equals first name, okay?
I had assignment and I panicked.
No, it's not assignment. You don't have to do anything tonight. It's not homework. No. Now, data types. There are different types of values you can store in a variable, right? There are different data types. We're going to look at the four most simple data types. There are more data types, but for today, we're only going to concern ourselves with 4. Okay? And as I said, when we start using it in a few minutes, we will see how these work. you have a string data type. A string is essentially text, alphanumeric characters. So alphabets and numbers combined give you a string. So remember when we typed hello world was in quotes, and that tells the computer that that is a string. If you don't put the quotes around hello world, it will think it is a variable. It will think hello is a variable, it will think world is a variable, and it will complain that it's undeclared, right? Or unknown identifier. It will give you an error saying, hey, I don't know what hello is because it's not been declared anywhere. So for you to have a string, you must have it in quotes, either single quotes or double quotes. Most of the popular JavaScript standards today use single quotes. So for the purpose of this program, if you're declaring a string, you will declare it in single quotes, okay? That's the best practice we're gonna adhere to. So an example right here is, I am a boy. That's a string, but notice it is in single quotes. Or,
sorry, can you repeat what you said about single quotes and double quotes? Like, why are we sticking to single quotes?
So they are equivalent in JavaScript. In some other programming languages, they are actually different. So like in PHP, there's double quotes actually evaluates variables inside it. I'm not going to say what that is here, but in JavaScript, the best practice that's pretty much industry-wide accepted now is that strings are declared with single quotes. If you use double quotes, it will still work, but another developer, linters, will complain about it, right? So the best practice is single quotes, okay? We'll talk about what to do if you have to have an apostrophe in your string. We'll talk about that later. We don't have that problem right now. But the best practice is single quotes, okay? That's for you to adhere with the industry standard. All right. Now, integers. Integers are whole numbers, positive or negative. Whole numbers are integers. In most programming languages, whole numbers are dealt with differently from decimals, right? They're considered a different type of data. But whole numbers are positive, integers are positive or negative whole numbers. So 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever. Those are integers. 1.1 or 1.5 is considered a floating point number, or float for short, right? You have the period in there that moves around based on what the number is, right? So decimals are called floating point numbers, or floats. So that's a different data type. And the fourth data type that we will concern ourselves with today are Booleans, right? Booleans are true or false, right? Essentially, in their native form, Booleans are true or false. Booleans can be used to indicate a binary situation. You know, true or false, yes or no, 0 or 1, on or off, right? That's what you can use Booleans to do. So, you know, like, let's say you have a form, right, where you want to ask if an individual is retired or not. You have retired, question mark, the value would be a Boolean, true, which is yes, retired, right? Or false, which is no, not retired, right? Or, you know, expensive, true or false, yes or no. But in programming, it is explicitly the word true, just like that, or the word false. And that means that you cannot use true or false as a variable identifier. They're reserved because they're actually values. And you will see that in action as well. Okay. There's just a couple more things to do, and then we'll play with all of this. Declaring variables, right? Before you can use a variable, you should declare the variable, right? And I'm going to show you different examples of that now. There are 3 keywords for declaring variables. There's a keyword let, which you use to declare a variable that you plan on changing. You know, the value can change. Or maybe even at the point at which you're declaring it, you don't know what the value will be, right? Let. Now there's const, essentially constant. That's a variable that you don't want the value to change, even as the program executes. You want the value to stay consistent, and you want to know if the value accidentally changes. You want the program to throw an error, right? If the value accidentally changes. That's what you use const for. And then var. Var, like I said here, is, you know, that used to be in old JavaScript. That used to be the only way you could declare a variable, right? So it is a lot like that. Smelly cousin that's sleeping on your couch. You can't kick him out, but you also don't really like him around. Now it has its uses, but it's considered potentially error prone. So we avoid using var as much as possible. Same way we avoid interacting with that smelly cousin, okay? So var is still there. It actually has its purpose, but you have a lot more potential to have bugs in your code using var than using let and const. So I'm going to switch to Visual Studio Code, and we're going to play with these variables a little bit, okay? Let's bring these concepts together. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to remove this console log line here, right? And I'm going to declare a variable first name. Let first name, right, equals John. Okay? And I'm going to say console.log first name. Okay? Let me see what I have on. No, I don't need a quote here. Console.log first name. Okay? Let me save this. And I'm going to run this here. And you see it outputs John in my console.log statement. Because what it does is it looks for the value of first name. So this is how, remember the assignment operator? This is how I store the value John in this variable. Now if I come here and I say first name equals Jane, and I say console.log first name. I'm sorry. And I save this. And I come here and I run this again. John, Jane. So remember that programs run line by line. And you see what I was saying about the line numbers? So it runs line 1, where it saves the value John to first name. Runs line 2, where it outputs the current value of first name. Then it comes to line 4. I don't have anything on line 3, which is okay. Comes to line 4, where I now change the value of first name, right? And then comes to line 5 and outputs the current value of first name. And you see that it has changed from John to Jane here. So the first time it sees first name has the value of John. The second time it sees first name, it now has the value of Jane. Okay? You will notice that the second time I did not put let here because let is, you use let when you're declaring the variable, right? I have declared it here so the computer knows what this is. I don't need to declare it again. What happens if I actually come in and try to declare this again? Let's see what happens if I try this again, right? I save this and I run this. What does it say? It throws an error and it tells me that the identifier first name has already been declared because I have declared it here. You don't declare a variable multiple times. If it's let, you declare it and you can use it multiple times, right? So the bug I have here is that I am trying to declare the same variable again. That's important. Now, let's say I come here. Now, let's use the other one, const last name equals Doe, right? And I save that. Okay, no, I won't save that yet. I'll just say console.log last name, right? And save that. And I can come here and run this. You see the output here, John Doe. So it's running from top to bottom again, line by line. So first name, last name. I change the value of first name and I output it again. So John Doe Jane. Okay, I have a little program going already. And who can remember what I said? And this is open now. Who can remember what I said about const?
You said it can be changed.
That the values must not be changed.
Correct. So const is a constant. So, and can anyone guess what's going to happen if I come here and I try to say last name equals William, right?
Right.
So if I save this and I try to run this, you see that? It's throwing an error. It hates that because last name is declared as a const, not a let. Right?
Right.
So if you want something in your code that you want to be consistent, let's think about the constants that we may have. Pi is a constant, right? So if I want to say pi, so I'm going to remove this so that, you know, we don't have that error. But I might want to say pi, const pi equals, what's the value of pi? 3.147, right? Something like that. Right?
Right.
Very happy with that. If I try to change pi anywhere in my code, after that line, it will complain about it. Okay? So that's the difference between let and const. Let, you declare and you can change as often as you can, or as often as you want. But const, you declare once and you can't change it again. The other difference is that whenever you use const, you must provide a value. With let, you don't have to provide a value. So I'm going to show you this, for example. With my let here, I can just say let first name, right? I don't give it a value, but I let the computer know, okay, this is a variable that I plan on using. It's important.
Sorry to interrupt. Can you
Yes.
mute everybody's what's it called one more time? And if you have the chance to stop everyone's video, can you do that too?
Okay.
So that people can.
Yeah, I can't stop. I can't stop video.
You can stop video. Okay.
All right. So let's proceed. Okay. So with let, I don't have to give it a value when I declare it, right? If I run this now, it will run happily, right? It says undefined here because I didn't give it a value here. But the computer knows what it is. It knows that, okay, yes, it's a variable, it's a valid variable. But if I take this pi here and I don't give it a value, right? And I say that, anyone's guess what's going to happen? Well, I mean, I'm saying it, so let's just run it and see. Boom. It says missing initializer in a const declaration. It means that I have a constant that I am not giving a value. And that makes sense because I cannot give it a value after the fact. I cannot come in later and assign a value to a const, which means the only opportunity I have to get a value is when I'm initializing. This is all Greek right now, but it's going to come together in a few minutes. Okay, we'll start playing with them. But this is how you declare variables. It's important to know this. You're going to do this thousands and thousands and thousands of times. It will become second nature. All right? So let me just put that back. One last thing that we're going to play with. What happens if I try to, I don't declare this, right? So I don't have first name. The computer has no idea what first name is. But you see on this line right here, I am trying to console log first name, right? If I run this, oh, sorry, I have an I there because I forget I'm not in Vim. So if I run this, now it throws an error because it has no idea what first name is. It says reference error. First name is not defined, right? I'll use this opportunity to show you how to read an error message. If you look at this error message right here, you're going to see that it actually points to the line of code. So it tells me it's in hello.js on line 2. If I come here to line 2, so the error will always tell you what line your bad code is. And here it even shows you exactly where on that line the problem is. And then the next line tells you what the problem is. So it tells me here, first name is not declared. Okay? So I'm hoping that while I've been doing this, we've been playing around with it and trying some things. Anyone?
Nope.
Okay, let's try to do that as we go along, right? Is experiment. You won't learn this by listening and watching. You'll learn it by trying.
How do we generate it on the terminal in the lower guy there?
Same command, node hello.
Oh, so just type node hello down there and it pops up whatever?
Yes, so you always save the file because you always have to save your changes. And then you come here, your node hello is how you run the program. Okay? So that's how you run it. Once you do that, it will run the program and it will run it line by line. If there's any error there, it's going to throw an error immediately. Okay? And when it hits an error, it will stop executing at that line. It will stop right there. So this one, for example, did not go beyond line 2 because line 2 had this undeclared variable here. Okay? So let's come back in here and let's look at some, oh, hold on, sorry.
So quickly, Yinka, when you're using the let feature, after the first name, do you need the space between the name and the equal sign? Is that
Yes.
necessary?
It is not necessary, but it's best practice. Okay, if you don't, it will run just fine.
Gotcha.
But a linter will complain about it.
Sorry, so it's best practice to put space in between.
Yes, you always should have a space between operators and what's on both sides. You must have a space between the keyword and that. If not, it is one word, right? The computer doesn't know where your keyword ends and your variable ends. So it must be const space first name, right? So this is an example here I'm leaving on the screen, right? And then you should have a space on both sides of operators. And we're going to talk about operators now.
Gosh.
That makes sense. Okay. And if you see the example I have here, I have console log, first name, comma, last name. If you try that, you see what it does.
I haven't been able to get anything to run in my terminal.
Sorry?
You want us to try this code? Yeah?
Yes, yes.
Okay, cool.
Yes, we can try this. I'll just give us
Nothing runs in my terminal.
3
It
minutes.
keeps saying node, the term node is not recognized as the name of
Okay.
the.
Did you install Node.js?
Yes.
Okay. And you're on a Mac?
No, Windows.
You're on Windows. So you might need your Node.js installation is faulty.
Oh, okay.
Right. Because
Me
you should,
too.
yeah.
Excuse me, so do you want us to type all these words in the terminal or above it?
Yeah, if you write this in Visual Studio Code, this is your program. Okay. Now, for Windows users, right? For Windows users, you can also run this from the command prompt. Right? If you're having issues with the terminal in Visual Studio Code, then try the command prompt. And if you have Node installed properly, it should work just fine. So if you're in the training folder, right, in your command prompt, just type node space hello, and that will run the script that you've written. Okay?
I'm sorry. So for us that use Windows, what exactly do you suggest we do in this scenario?
Use the command prompt to run it if it's not running in the terminal. If it's not running in Visual Studio
What does
Code.
that mean? Use the command prompt.
You moved from the example. You moved from
sorry. Yeah, sorry, one second. So that means you remember how to open up the command prompt, right?
Nope.
Okay, so when we started, we talked about opening the command prompt. If you go to your Windows, to the start menu, right? Windows start menu, and you type CMD, that will open up the command prompt. Now, if you go to File Explorer, sorry, I haven't used Windows actively in over a decade. So it's hard for me to describe things in Windows. But I believe that you can also open the command prompt in File Explorer. If you open the folder that you're working in File Explorer, and then in the address bar, you type CMD at the beginning of it, and space, and you press enter, that will open that folder in the command prompt. Okay, all right. Let's move on. We're gonna have more examples, right? So we're gonna do a lot of things like this again. So let's move on quickly here.
Okay, it's right. John Doe 45, 90,000.
Yes, that's correct. That's what you should get for that. So that's running. That means that's running for you. All right, best practices. There are best practices for naming variables, for your variable identifiers. One best practice that you've probably seen is using camel case. Because you can have space in an identifier, right? And you want your identifiers to be descriptive. You have each word that you're using in your identifier start with an uppercase letter. So the first character of your identifier should be lowercase. And then every word in it should be uppercase, but no spaces. And that helps you read it. So this, for example, you see can read as camel case, right? So that style of writing is what we call camel case. You'll hear about a lot of different, there's kebab case and snake case and all kinds of case, but this style is what we call camel case because it looks kind of like the hump of a camel, right? So, so like first name, you notice first name was uppercase N right there for the name. Last name was uppercase N for the name so that you can read it as two words. And that's it. The other thing is to avoid starting identifiers with underscore or dollar. Even though you can, try not to do that. It's not considered good practice. And the reason is because a lot of libraries that you use or frameworks that you use this to name their variables so that you don't conflict with them. And then another best practice, use descriptive identifiers, like we said, last name, rather than LN or FN, say last name, first name. So that's here, avoid abbreviations. And aim for self-documenting code. That's code that's easy to read. And declare each variable on a new line. Okay? Those are best practices. We will look out for them as we go on and we work on the project. And we will flag any violations of those best practices. Okay? So now we have two more segments to go through, and I'll try to do them each in 15 minutes. And each will be easier than the last because we're just going to build on what we already know. And there'll be a lot more interactive, okay? So let's look at operators. Operators perform actions, right? Or operations on data, okay? There are different types of operators or different groups of operators. Many of them you're familiar with because you use them every day, you use them in school, you hated some, you loved some. But we're going to just quickly look at them. But operators give you a lot more power, all right? So let's start with arithmetic operators. These should be familiar, at least most of these should be familiar, right? We have addition, subtraction, division, multiplication. Those are standard from what we learned in school. And then we have the increment operators. Those increase the value of a variable by 1. And that means they work on integers, right? Or floating point. And then we have the decrement operator. Those decrease the value of a variable by 1, right? Then we have the modulus operator, which is the remainder of a division. So if you do 5% 2, you get 1, because 5 divided by 2 is 2, remainder 1, right? So, and then you have the exponential operator, which essentially is a power. So if you want to do 5 to the power of 2, it will be 5 asterisk 2. Let's play with this. And let's write some code to do all this. So I'm going to claim all this out, right? I'm going to say let x equals 5, let y equals 6, right? If I say console.log, right, And then in here I say x plus y. Notice I put a space in between. It's not required, but this makes it readable. So it's best practice. So I'm going to save this. I'm going to come down here and I run this. What do you expect? 11. Right? Because 5 plus 6 is 11. Let's change this. Or let's do another one. Console.log x times y. Right? That's 30. Right? Console.log 30 divided by x, right? And I can say 30 divided by y. So I want to output both, right? I'm gonna save this and run that. So 30 divided by 5 is 6, and 30 divided by 6 is 5. Okay? So I hope we're all, trying this out. And that's how your arithmetic operators work. And which one are we missing? So we have the plus, console.log y minus x, right? And let's say console.log y x. All right. So y minus x, 6 minus 5 is 1. And the remainder of 6 divided by 5 is also 1. Right? Now let's see. What if we made this rather than y, 13? What's the remainder of 13 divided by 5? 3. And you see that this is the same value here. If I came here and I change this to 5. Right? Same thing, I get 3. So the remainder of 13 divided by 5 is 3. Now, let's do this. X plus plus, right? Console.log x, and then the value of x. I'm doing something special here. Can anyone tell me what this is going to output? Anyone?
A variable first, and then whatever the value for the x is.
Okay.
It's
going to output 5x.
Yeah, x, and then the answer, which is increment 6, x6.
Yes. This is going to be x and 6 because this guy here adds 1, increases the value of x by 1. So literally, this is the same thing as saying x equals x plus 1. That's what that means. It says, hey, add 1 to the value of x, or increase the value of x by 1. And if I say y minus minus, right? And so here, I'm going to now output console log, right? Y. Now, who can say y? I have the y in quotes here, but not in quotes here.
To force it to as a string, so it says y and doesn't say the value of y.
Exactly. So this y here is a string. It will actually output the letter y. But this y here is a variable. So it will output the value of y. So let me run this and you'll see. You see that? So here it outputs the letter X. If you want to output a letter or a string, you have to put it in quotes. If you want to output a variable or work with a variable, you don't put it in quotes. This is called a literal, right? So this is a literal. This is a stringed literal. And this is a variable. So that's it. So X, and then the value of X, Y, and then the value of Y. Okay?
Yinka?
Yes.
I think there's a chance to pause for a second and see if we've left too many people behind.
Not yet. I'll do that. I'll do that.
All right.
I'll do that. All right. Okay. So that is this, because we're going to do a recap of these. We're going to go through it and, you know, and check temperatures. Yeah.
Gotcha.
All right. So this right here is how the arithmetic operators work. So the last one we didn't do is console log, right? To, okay, let's say 5 to the power of 2. And if I run that here, we have 5 squared is 25. So that's the exponent operator. Okay? This is the longest list of operators that we have is the arithmetic operators. The other lists are shorter. Okay, so let's quickly move on. And like I said, all of these will keep coming back. You know, they're gonna keep coming back. The assignment operator, we've already seen the equal to sign, right? But there are more assignment operators, and they essentially just use the arithmetic operator. Okay? And what they do is they make the code a little easier to write. So let's start off from here again. Right? And what we want to do is we have the plus equals, minus equals, multiply equals, divide equals. What they do is they perform the operation and then save it back, right? And just to make that easier, if I say x equals 5, right? What would I do if I wanted, we know that x plus plus, right, means incrementing x by 1, right? But what do I do if I want to increment it by 5? Will I do x plus 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 plus? No. If I want to
assume you do x plus 5.
I would do x equals x plus 5, right? And that will increase the value of x by 5, right? So if I do this, console.log x, let's run this and see. Right? X is x plus 5, which is now 10, because the value of x is 5. So 5 plus 5 is 10. So here we get 10. Okay? Now, that is all fine and good, right? But if you want to do it the pro way to do this is to say x plus equals 5. Okay? And if we do that, guess what happens? Exactly the same thing, 10. So that's what this means, is add 5 to it and update the value, or increment by whatever is on the other side of this. Okay? Same thing now, if I say y minus equals 3, who knows what the value of y is?
Three?
Yes. So the value of y would be 3. Okay? And so that's how those operators work. They are literally, they are assignment operators, but they do the math. They are a combination of the arithmetic operator, and they just save the result back. That's it. Okay?
Excuse me.
Yes.
I'm still getting an error message at my terminal.
Yes, we'll have to resolve that later.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Now, string operators. There's just one string operator, and that's the plus sign. It's a very interesting one. It's an exciting one, but it makes combining strings easy. It's what we call concatenation. Right, so concatenating strings is when you join 2 strings together. So for example, if I have, remember our let first name equals John, right? And we say let last name equals Doe, right? And then we can now say let full name equals first name plus last name. You say console.log full name, right? And I run this now. I get John and Doe joined together. That's what the plus does. It just joins the 2 together. I can add a space here by adding a literal space. So space plus. So I actually have a space in here between quotes. So I'm asking you to add an actual space. And that gives me John space Doe. And that's our string operator. That's the only string operator we have. It's just the only thing you can do with strings is to join them together. You can't subtract strings from strings. Okay? Fun. Now, comparison operators. These are a lot of fun, the comparison operators, because they help you figure out if something's greater than the other, if 2 things are exactly the same, or if they are kind of the same, right? So you have the equal to, which helps you compare if 2 values are the same. Now, you have the absolutely equal to, that's 3 equals. And that confirms that they are exactly the same thing, which means they're not just the same value, they're the same type, and I'll explain that. But the difference here, notice how this is different from the assignment operator. 1 equal is assignment, it is not comparison. If you want to compare, you have to use 2. So let me show you what that means. If I have here, let's say, let x equals 5 again, right? And let y equals 6. And I say console.log x equals y, right? What do you think the output of this is? Is x equal to y?
Output should be false.
Yes, because x is not equal to y. So if I run this, says false, right? Let's look at an operator here, not equal to, right? So the exclamation point means not. So if I come here and I change this to not equal, what do you think the output is? X is not equal to Y. That is true. So this statement in here is true. So if I run this here, that's true. I can check to see if X is not equal to 5, which would be false because X is equal to 5. And I can check to see if X is actually equal to 5. Right? X is equal to 5. Okay? So that's what these comparison operators do. Now, is X greater than 5?
No.
No. So that's false. Is X less than 5?
True.
No. Now, is X less than or equal to 5?
Yes.
Yes. True.
Excuse me, question.
Yes.
Do comparison operators only return Boolean values?
Yes. They only return Boolean values. They only return true or false.
Thank you.
Okay. So X is X greater than or equal to 5? Anyone?
True.
True. All right. Now let's see. Is 5? Okay, now let's do this. Is X greater than or equal to Y?
No.
Anyone? False. And is X less than or equal to Y? Yes. It is less than or equal to Y because it's 5 and 5 is less than or equal to 6. Okay? And we have walked through the comparison operators. The one we haven't looked at is this funny guy here. And the interesting news I have for you is that this one is the best practice one to use rather than this one. So a lot of linters will throw errors if you use this rather than this. And let me tell you why. Let's do this. What is the difference between X and Y? Does anyone know? Are they the same?
No.
What's the difference between X and Y? Anyone?
One is a string and the other is a value.
They're both values. One is a string and the other is an
integer.
Integer. Right. So that's correct. This Y here is a string because it is in quotes. Once you put anything in quotes, boom, it's a string. Now, if you do this, right, what do you think the result of this comparison would be? True or false? Is X equal to Y?
Oh,
I'm guessing based on the fact that we've got another one, which is 3 equals, I'm guessing this one's going to be false. So this one's going to be true. I guess this one's going to say true.
Yes.
And that's my guess also.
Right. So let's look at it. Our answer is true. Because what it does is it tries to evaluate them. So since you're not specifically requiring them to be exactly the same, what the interpreter does is, okay, let's see if we can get them to be the same type. So it converts this one to an integer and then compares them. And when you, it essentially just strips the quotes out. It's like, oh, this is kind of like a number, so I can make a number out of this. So I'll make it a number and let's see, right? And it tries to make it a number, succeeds, so you get 5, 5, and that's true. But if I put this here, it tells the interpreter, look, don't change anything. Compare them. They must be exactly the same type and the same value, right? So when it evaluates this, you get false. And that's the reason this is the best practice way, is because you can't assume, you can't leave room for errors where it's actually not the same type, but it's sometimes it will evaluate to true. Okay? So the best practice way to do comparisons for equivalence is the 3 equals, not the 2 equals. We'll get used to it as we go along, right? But that's what this is. Okay? All right. So there are just a couple more operators, but they're very simple. So we've looked at the comparison operator, and the last pair of operators we have are the logical operators, right? This work on your logical and, the logical or, and your logical not. Okay? And so if we come here, and I'm going to clear this out. This is very simple. If I say console.log true and true. I don't know how many people did logic in school or remember it, but true and true will give you true, right?
Right.
True and false.
Give you false.
Yes, true and false will give you, sorry, hold on, I'm missing something. Yeah. True and false will give you false. Now, true or false.
True.
True or false.
True.
Will give you true. Now, false or false.
True.
False.
False or false will give you false.
False.
Right? Because there's no true option in either. Now,
Right.
false and false. Who knows what this is?
True.
I'll DHL a donut to whoever.
True.
True. True.
Everybody wants donuts. Oh my God. All right. False and false is
False.
false.
No donut for me.
Yeah, well, Priscilla's getting the donut, so.
Yeah. All right. Now, the nuts. So those are. So we've done the and the or. Now the last one, and this is a very fun one, is the not. This one inverts. So not false is
true.
True, right? And not true.
Not true.
False.
Is
false.
False. Okay. Now, what if we did? I'm going to show you something a little weird here. 1, 1 and 0. What do you think you get there?
False.
And if I give you 1, 4, 0.
1.
Interesting, right? Because 1 and 0 are actually also Booleans.
1 is
right?
true and 0 is false, right?
Oh, okay.
Yes. So I wanted, to throw that in the mix right there. Now, let me ask you this. What do I get if I do this? I do not 0.
I guess not
Be true.
0.
It should be 0. The knots should cancel each other.
Yeah, false. So why is it saying false and not 0 this time around?
So this is a trick that we use to convert a value that is what we call truthy or falsy to an actual Boolean.
Okay.
Right? And essentially in programming, if you have a value, it's considered truthy. That means it's kind of true because it has a value. If it is empty, it's considered falsy. Now, if in your code, look at this. Now remember, I want to compare, right? If I say, let's do this. If I say, let x equals 10, right? And I want to see if console x equals true, right? False, right? Oh, actually, no, let me do this. Let me make it 1. Then we'll work with that. Right? Right? X equals true is 1, right? But I get true for that. But if I want to absolutely check it, right? Because if I had written that code, it'll be problematic because it's not best practice. So if I want to use the best practice method, right, I will get false here. Now, what I need to do, if I want to actually do that here, is I will Booleanize, essentially make my X a Boolean, so I'll do not there. Like Wally said, Wally was right. They cancel each other, but they change the type. So this right here is just a trick. We'll get used to this as we work. These are all fundamental.
So do they always change the type? That's
yes.
They change the type more than the fact that they cancel each other.
Yes, they actually change the type to a Boolean.
All right.
Okay, so that's the final piece for today. We're at 8 o'clock. There was one more topic I was hoping we'll touch, but we'll pick that up tomorrow.
Do we get assignments?
Practice what we've done.
Practice
yes, I'm going to upload this video, right? So it should be up within an hour. Okay. I am recording this, am I not?
You are.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Please say yes.
Yes. Yes, I am recording this, so we're good. So within an hour, this is going to be up.
Okay.
Right? The assignment will be just practicing, get used to it, get used to declaring variables, get used to,
I think we should.
the operators as much as possible. Your Visual Studio Code, what we can do is, those who still have problems with it, if you have the time, please just stay on the call. I will work through it and get you up and running, okay? And then everyone else, that's fine, we'll call it. So this is the final topic for today. Before we close the call, any questions on what we've learned so far? And we're already a few minutes over. We're 3 minutes over. So
I have a question.
yes.
So is there a way you could, like the way we keep typing the console, is there something that makes basically, if you wanted to repeat the last line of code, so you can basically save yourself some time.
There is a way you can copy the previous line and paste it, right? There's also a plugin for Visual Studio Code that allows you to do that. And I think there may be a command in Visual Studio Code that allows you to do that. For my work, I actually don't use Visual Studio Code. I use Vim. So Vim it records everything you do, and you just press period and it will replay it. But Vim is extremely nerdy. So the answer is yes, there's a way. It's not the most intuitive, quickest way, but we'll explore that as we go along.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I do have a question. Same question here. So how do we resolve this coming out that is giving error?
Yes, I said please stay on the call if you have the time right after this.
All right.
We'll try to resolve it. Okay. Anybody else? How are you feeling? How's your temperature? You see, we got to make sure that this class didn't give you COVID-19 or high blood pressure. Everybody okay? Or both? So.
No, don't worry, no COVID here.
All right. Okay, so now we're still, I think today was kind of the most theoretical part of what we're going to do, because the section that we were going to go into is where it really starts coming together, right? But now you've learned the fundamentals, you've learned about variables. That should not be Greek anymore. If you see let and const should not be Greek anymore, and the operators should not be Greek anymore. And you know what a statement is, and you know what a program is, and you understand that the program runs line by line, one after the other in sequence, okay? From tomorrow, we're going to go into a little more actually doing stuff. There's some problems that we'll solve tomorrow, okay? We're going to do loops, and we're going to do control statements. So if else, if something, do this, else do this, or do this 500 times, or do this 5 times, or do this for as many people as are in the room, So we're going to start actually doing stuff with these things. We've learned enough to actually start doing some things, and we'll start that tomorrow. I promise that even though it all seems all over the place, right now, these are all building blocks and pieces that will come together, okay? So please hang in there. It will get more fun and easier to understand, okay?
So I have an announcement to make.
Yes.
So if you were invited and you haven't signed up for the course, please let whoever invited you know so that they can send you the the materials. Because some people might be joining and they're not able to receive the necessary emails and group messages. So if you want to get the messages and if you joined the group yesterday for the first time or today for the first time, let us know, or let whoever invited you know. Thanks.
Hey, Dr. Ajao, some of the folks that I invited in the last couple of days, I've said the Google form says it's no longer accepting participants or something like that.